morning, everyone. Steve Crosby here. Welcome to Monday Morning Musings. 2 more sessions on Reformation, myths, lies, and half-truths. This one we're going to talk about something at the fabric of the American consciousness, and that is the myths about the Pilgrims and their arrival in what is now Massachusetts. Now, first of all, let me explain a couple of things. I've been to Plymouth, United Kingdom, many times. I have stood at the place where the boat took off from. I've been there. I have been on replicas of the Mayflower. I've taken tours on replicas of the Mayflower. I have been in seminars taught by scholars who specialize in the history of the Pilgrims. I do not want to diminish the tremendous courage and sacrifice that those people took coming to the equivalent of us going to Mars. And it gets very personal for me because my ancestors, I would not be in North America. The third ship over after the Mayflower, there was a 19-year-old Yorkshireman by the name of John Crosby. I think it was John, and his 18-year-old wife and baby who left Yorkshire and came to the wilderness known as North America. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for their bravery. I can't imagine a 19-year-old man, and again, I'm doing some of this from memory, but the name of the boat was the Susan and Ellen. You can look it up. My ancestor was on that boat. So there is no amount of thankfulness that I can express for being here today. However, myth has been built up around that story because the story goes like this. You know, they left England because of religious persecution, and they came here to establish religious freedom and freedom of conscience and to worship God in purity, etc., etc., etc. Simply not the case. Like so many things in history, it's a mixed bag of motives. If any of us have been involved in Christianity any length of time and have any degree of honesty, we should know that none of us have clean hands. We all have mixed motives. But here's what really happened. Yes, in England, they were being persecuted. But they went to the Netherlands first. And the Netherlands was a very progressive, in the best sense of the word, open society, religiously tolerant society. They had complete religious freedom in the Netherlands. Complete. They didn't have to come to North America to be the New Jerusalem and all that. They had complete freedom to worship the way they wanted. But two things were happening that they didn't like. One, they were at the bottom of the socioeconomic scale because they were foreigners. Now we're getting to the real issue. Money. They didn't like the fact that they were going to have to start at the bottom in that culture. It had nothing to do with religious freedom. They had religious freedom. The second thing they didn't like was that their children were learning to speak Dutch instead of English. Well, of course, if they're living in the Netherlands, they're going to be playing in the neighborhood, and you want to be able to communicate with your friends. You begin to learn Dutch. And they were concerned that they were going to lose their English identity. So now we're getting into quasi-racist, quasi-ethnic superiority. So what they did is they gave up their religious freedom and went back to England, voluntarily putting themselves into religious persecution. Now, they didn't like that and they wanted out. And here's this opportunity. There's this new world. And have you ever wondered how they paid for it? How did they pay for the trip? Money? They voluntarily sold themselves into what we would call slavery, indentured servitude. Not quite involuntary like the word slavery implies, because they did it willingly. But indentured servitude would be a better phrase. They cut a deal that a certain amount of money that they make, whenever they get there, however they make that, would go to the folks who they have basically sold their souls to in indentured servitude just to get out of there. So, money, ethnic pride was at the core of the reason for them to scoot out of Plymouth. Now, did they want to worship the way they wanted to, et cetera, et cetera? Yes, that's true. But they had it, and they willingly gave it away for money. And there's no news there, because money has always been the other god. And it remains so today. And it's at the core of American value systems, and it's at the core of church value systems. It's always about the money, and it always has been. Am I saying that they were just these corrupt, insincere people? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying what I've been saying all along through this series: tell the whole story. Not just the parts that make your people look good. Tell the whole story. All right? So I'm willing to bet there's some of you watching today who've never heard this, because you've believed the myth that you've been propagated at Thanksgiving through school and church and everything else. You know, these people looking into the sky and just so concerned about worshiping God. Guys, they were humans just like you and I, with mixed motives, just like you and I. Tell the whole story. See you next time.